This is a weird one and I don't read it normally, so sorry. My GF told me to post here, lol. Okay, so I Zennia inherited my my grandfather house. Well, technically me and mom did. Mom is a college professor and remarried to a technical writer/engineer who makes a ridiculous amount of money and a big ol' mansion of a house, to me, in the well-off part of town. So she said Pop's house is mine. I was grateful and am still. This was about a year ago. I need to sort of set the stage here. Pop was a popular man. He helped everyone. The kids all called him Uncle or Pops, and his peers called him the Sultan of 2nd Street. Never knew why they went with Sultan other than alliteration since he was black, lol. He donated and loaned and gave money to whomever needed it. He was a Vietnam War vet, and despite the stigma of it at the time and that of being a black man, he made something of himself as boxer and boxing instructor. He opened his own place and eventually opened more. When mom was small, he bought that house, and when mom got pregnant with me and my father flaked out, Pops became that father figure. My childhood bedroom is in this house, it's now my study, and so everyone here knows us. Pop passed and I got the house. All caught up? Okay, so there is a neighbor to my immediate right who we call Suga Mama or Suga. Everyone knew that she had it bad for Pops, but see, after he left Mama, my grandmother, or more likely, she left him, he chose the bachelor/playa life. Yeah, he got around. It's still debatable if the woman who owns the house is on the third, if her son is my uncle. Anyway, Suga has a son Miles, M50-something, who also has a son James. James is my age and we get on well. We used to be joined at the hip in grade school, and even though we glowed into different cliques in middle and high school, we were friendly. Suga and some of the other older folks will joke about us. Soulmates. We even share a birthday with a strange coincidence, I will admit, but then they keep adding at the same hospital. Well, yeah, because back then there was only one good one nearby. LOL. Now, to be clear, I am bisexual with a strong preference if my dating history has any sway for non-binary people or women. No shame in my game. I can talk about the absolute bullshit of homophobia in the black community, but you're not here for that. So I meet my now GF Dinah, who is also my age, and she is absolutely a dream. She's smart and hot and sweet and thoughtful and kind and a million other things. I have to stop there or this post will be all about how out of my league she is. I started having her around the house, and Mr. Miles was around and offered his and James help in getting stuff from the truck into the house. At one point, James pulled me aside as he knew she was my GF and said I shouldn't mention it to his dad, but it was too late. Miles had asked her if the two of us were college buddies, and she replied that we're dating. Mr. Miles pulls me aside after and asks if it's true, and I said yes. Enter the homophobia and what would Pop think? LOL, I told him Pop knew I was bi for years. I came out to him in high school and he was A-okay with it. That shut him up for a bit and we got me moved in. Well, now about a week ago Mr. Miles came by. IWFM, but the fiscal year is coming about, and it's a busy time, so I made Mr. Miles had some tea and sat with him but made him aware I was calling this my lunch hour and couldn't entertain long as I was still working. He said, well, I will cut to the chase then, and said so matter-of-factly, you need to leave that woman. I laughed as my GF and I have been together now for over a year and are happy, so. No, why the hell would he even come here with this? He said Suga is sick, which I knew. She sadly got uterine and breast cancer in March, and she needs to see her boys married. He said he prefers I marry James, but IT would be okay with him if I marry his older brothers Daniel, 36, or Paul, 37. I told him yeah, no. I won't be marrying any of his sons. I said I already have a ring for Dinah and am planning to propose to and marry her. I said I know he doesn't agree with gay marriage and he frankly doesn't have to. It's my life, and while I love and respect him like a real uncle, he will not tell me who to love or marry. He yelled at me and said some awful things, and I wanted to say I was a badass and stared him down like Gayle King did to R. Kelly in the meme, but I cried. A lot. I just asked him to please leave. He did, but ripped my pride flag from my pole at the door, calling me slur. I got a new one the next day and it went missing, so my GF bought me a door cam and a new flag. Sure enough, he came that night and ripped that one down too. I texted him the video and said I would not press charges if he stopped all this. He said to go ahead, call the police on another black man, and if he's killed, it's on me and my sins. It's night here and I was cuddled up to my boo after a movie date night and we're playing Mass Effect video game. Aside, but can you believe this woman has never heard of this game? And there is knock at my door. It's Paul. He asks to speak with me outside, so I tell Dinah to keep playing and I will be back. I don't see Paul often, so I thought something happened, maybe Suga got worse or something happened to his dad. Paul explained that he was here to ask me out. He had flowers and a stuffed unicorn. I like unicorns, don't read into it, lol. And I of course told him I am in a relationship. He said he knew I had a GF, but that wasn't a real relationship, as a relationship is between a man and a woman, and he knows I date men as I've dated a male mutual friend in my 20s. I just said my relationship is both real and none of his business and to leave. He then said he guessed I liked feminine men since my GF is trans, which okay, but she's not, but even if she was, have you seen this hottie? So I just laughed it off. S&D said he was jealous he couldn't pull a hottie like mine and said I have cameras with audio, so if he can please fuck all the way off and not force me and my GF to call the cops, it would be appreciated. I told Dinah, who howled in laughter and paused the game to watch the doorcam footage, laughed more, and then told me to post here. So here we are. Sorry. You're welcome? I don't know. 5 days later. Y'all might not remember, but I'm that bi chick madly. I'm love with my smokin' brilliant GF and living beside my homophobic neighbor. So a few days ago I shared about Mr. Miles losing his ever-loving mind about me having a GF and basically put his son up to come over, demean my relationship, and ask me out cause that's such a great plan /s. For safety, given Mr. Miles losing all the sense the good Lord gave him, GF and I stayed up at my folks and just got back yesterday evening. My dad double-checked all the new lights and cameras and then walked over to have a friendly chat with Mr. Miles. Not sure what he said, but it had to be good because Mr. Miles didn't even sit on his porch to smoke his nightly cigar. And if you knew that man the way I do, you know that's not in character. I asked Daddy what he said to the poor man and he laughed and said, "Oh baby, definitely nothing that would remind him of our good and mighty God or offering to send him to him." Sorry, I digress. So I expected everything to be okay because I'm stupid, and thus went back to life per usual. I ran my GF's bath, jumped her bones, and woke up to make her breakfast thinking my life is some kind of wonderful, only to hear a knock at the door. Today is Monday. Everyone who works is off to work, and everyone who doesn't knows I WFH on weekdays. Something didn't feel right, so I woke my love up and told her to get dressed just in case something was about to happen. I'm no warrior, but I did have my bat and opened the door and made eye contact with a cop. We stare at each other. He looks down at my bat, then back to my face, then turns showing the cop behind him and looks at her. And I am here thinking, well, Estrati, this is what I get for assuming this all would blow over. I will admit I am not everyone's cup of tea, so I use humor to compensate for being, well, a weirdo. LOL, don't know how else to put it. So I grin at the cops and ignore my heart racing and place the bat down and just say, "Sorry, I thought you were someone else." Coffee. They weren't amused and apparently didn't want coffee either. Who was I expecting and why a bat? I just said I wasn't sure, but we're two women alone in a house with someone at the door at the ass crack of dawn, so they asked for me by name and I confirmed I was who I was, even showed my ID. They asked me for my GF as they got a call. GF comes out and shows her ID. They asked to speak to us separately and I was getting upset. "What's this about, sir?" The cop looked at me really annoyed, then looked at my GF and asked if she felt safe with me, to which she said she did. He said he needs to investigate a call. I ask what call. He says he's the one asking questions and all I could think was greed, he's that type of cop. He tried to step inside but we were speaking through a screen door which I locked last night, and it was then he actually asked if he could come in. I said no, sir. My GF said she will step out with him to answer any questions and she does, and the female cop takes her a distance away and talk. The male cop opens the now unlocked door and peers in my house asking if he can have a look around. I ask again what all this is about. He asks me questions, all centering around why anyone might think I am holding my GF here against her will. I was like, what do you mean against her will? He says her BF called and said I took her forcefully and kept her here overnight. To which I reply, what fucking BF? She's a lesbian and gay as the day is long. At this point GF and female cop come back and GF looks mad. She points at Suga's house and asks if that's where the call came from and outline everything that's basically in my last post. GF then goes, "Show them the videos." So I hand over my phone with the Ring app pulled up with the footage of Mr. Miles yanking our pride flag down and using slurs. The cops were looking at one another, and then back at Suga/Mr. Miles' house. Mystery solved, I'm thinking. I'm not good in tense situations, so I just crack, sure you don't want a coffee? And GF whacked my arm. We did the whole song and dance, sending files, getting their cards, filing a complaint for the damage of my property on Mr. Miles' part. And then my GF said she wants to press harassment charges too. The male cop snorted, based on what? And the female cop took over. She said without solid and consistent proof, they can't press charges of that nature. We asked about hate crimes and they said taking down a pride flag isn't a hate crime. It's destruction of property. Suddenly I can hear the guy cop saying, "Sir, stay inside." And who else could it have been but dear old Mr. Miles? Look at this old rooster up this early. Fuck. The old sour raisin is yelling for them to ask about me throwing around my GF last night. Cops aren't even listening to him, just telling him to go inside, and he keeps repeating that I was brutalizing her last night. Which the creepy bits aside about him knowing anything about last night, I want to take as pine hell of a compliment. The cops yell for him to go inside or he will be in cuffs. He does, and the female cop turns to me and I just blurt it, "If throwing around is what we're calling sex now." And my GF gave me a look like shut clapping hands the F you up, so I did. It did get a laugh from the lady cop though. They told us to stay inside and we did, but you better believe we minded everything but our business at that point. We watched through my study window as they went and spoke to Mr. Miles. There was a back and forth and I heard the cop say turn around, and Mr. Miles was saying like, "Why are you hassling me, man? I didn't do nothing." So the cop got louder and said, "Either turn around and I take you in or you go back in the house, sir." Mr. Miles was saying this ain't right, but he went inside. The cops stayed on the porch for a few minutes more. Then they departed. Happy Monday. For days later. This is slowly just becoming my little hobby of sharing what Mr. Miles and his family have been doing. After the police incident, it was pretty quiet this week. Dinah, my GF, and I also have just been living quietly in general, hoping the storm passed over. I can be such a damn fool sometimes. I thought it was all going to be fine. We have cameras, lights. Dinah made a rainbow 'cause of course, no trespassing sign. She got mini pride flags and staked them in the front garden. Did I mention she gardens? She's literally a dream girl. Mr. Miles sort of went back to normal. He smoked his nightly cigars, washed his car, all the usual shit. Enter the HO. I live in a community that, how can I say this? It's not the hood, but it ain't fancy. Lots of the people here are people of color and generational owners, meaning their grandparents or great-grandparents bought the house way back in the day and the owners inherited it. Nobody minds their business, but we let each other be as far as how we use the lawns and shit like that. It's very much a stay in your lane situation. Guy shows up at the door. I'm not home, but Dinah is, so this is what she described happened, but I admit I Zennia'd some details for that extra oomph. Dinah has coined that phrase as, according to her, I allegedly add a flair to retellings. She opens the door with the chain on and this pleasant-looking man is smiling at her, so she assumes he is a salesman. She just asks if our no soliciting sign is there, and is about to close the door at that, but he said he's not selling anything. He's an officer with the HOA. Dinah hears the word officer and is cussing in every tongue she knows internally and just asks what he wants. He hands her a notice. Apparently we are in some sort of violation. Dinah's no pushover, so she's rather unimpressed at this point, and he is trying to explain, we notice some violations dash, and she asks point blank if what he's about to say is in the papers he gave her. He says yes, and she looks it over again. A rainbow shit? A violation? Oh no, it's 7. 7 violations, all related to our rainbow shit. Now Dinah's got a main suspect in who is behind all this, and she is laughing in this man's face. He says he really doesn't want to fine us since they prefer to lay back. But this is causing complaints. So I get home and she's out back painting. Nothing off about that. She likes creative DIY stuff, so I just let her know I'm home and there's a box. I assumed it was for her because she freaking loves Amazon. She comes in and shows me what she's working on. Rocks, signs, a set of garden pots, you name it. She has rainbowed it and I just sigh and go, what did that man do now? And she tells me about HOA. I was like, we have an HOA? And she hands me the papers. I called the number and the voicemail prompt checks out that it is an HOA. I've been the owner of the house for over a year, so it's news to me. But I'm also first-time homeowner and I've been wrong before. I had and have a million questions. Like, don't we get billed for it or something if we're part of HOA housing? Then I noted that all the issues they are threatening to fine are accompanied by grainy photos of said items, and they are all our rainbow stuff. I realize that Dinah is 2 steps off scorched earth. It takes a lot to get her there, but baby, look out when she arrives at that destination. The sign being that she is about to rainbow the whole damn house. I asked her intentions and she just shrugs and says, "Oh, I thought they didn't get the aesthetic, so I'm helping complete your vision. How is this my fault now?" Oh well. And I'm like, ooh, sweet baby Jesus. I don't have the financials to say fuck you if they find me to oblivion. We had something of a tiff about it. A tiff is a small little argument, but argument makes it sounds far more dire than it is. As she was camped in F them especially territory, and I'm thinking of the possible consequences. I finally calm her down and she's starting to see my side of it. Guys, I fought the good fight, I really did. She was coming around, I was so close. So close to squashing this issue, calling it a night, play video games with my boo and go back to normal. But fucking because the goddamn box. The box wasn't addressed. It was just a box with a note that said it's a gift. They were flags. Not pride flags, but like various sizes of the American flag. Dinah saw this and flipped the fuck out. She's walking around the house cussing in more than one language. And I'm there in F my life mode, knowing damn well we're a step closer to scorched earth. That was last night. She was still creating her DIY rainbow stuff when I went to bed. I'm not even going to try and sound like I want to attempt to think it's anyone else up to this bullshittery for obvious reasons, gestures broadly, but also because Mr. Miles smoked his nightly cigar and I don't know what he said to Dinah, who happened to be out there. Yeah right, baby, since when do you even like sitting outside at night? Alone? And she is swearing up and down he all but admitted it, but even if he hadn't, she checked our camera and Mr. Miles's son seems to be taking photos of our home from the sidewalk. So now we know at least Paul has something to do with this too. Dinah's not back from work yet, and IWFH, so I'm basically just waiting for the other show to drop because now my GF has gone full Gollum, and God help anyone who tries to stop whatever it is she is thinking about doing. It's like trying to stick your foot out to stop a bullet train. Not gonna happen and damn painful. I'll update when the other shoe drops. P.S. Our complaint to the police after my last update is still being investigated, and not to be any sort of way, but I don't expect much from it. Fingers crossed though. Pray for me, y'all. P.P.S. Also sorry for all the cussing. This has put us both in a state and I have a pretty foul mouth. Edit. Just called my mom because she generally knows all LOL. She said that while she isn't 100% about the now, as it's hard to recall so randomly while she's working, she knows for a fact there wasn't one when Pop owned the house. I'm going through the paperwork now because I can't let his go. The next day. This shit is going to make me into some gossip columnist or something because what I am about to share is fucking wild. House cleaning first. Since my last post had so much going on. The police, after many calls from my GF Dinah, have basically said that our case doesn't constitute harassment, and there is no evidence of anything more, video, but only destruction of property. They said it's largely a civil matter, and thus should be handled in civil court rather than criminal. Best believe Dinah is not about to let this go. As for the HO, we don't have one. And by we, I mean my street. Miles lives on the corner house, so he's on a technically different street. We checked and double-checked, and Dinah helped me sort through some paperwork for good measure. No, my street never had one and never signed on for one. Dinah was delighted by this. I mean, that hot hellion put all her rainbow projects out and then started talking about rainbowing the house. Like the whole damn house. She wants to make it a project and for all to call our queer pals together and rainbow paint the exterior, including the garage doors and driveway. LOL. I said we should start small, and we agreed that she can paint our front and back porches first, and she found cute lights to shine on the house that can project rainbows, so we have to check with our other neighbors, but I said if they are fine with it, fine hun. And now, ladies, gentlemen, non-binary monarchs and all, I present to you the fuckery. Mr. Miles saw me washing my love's car for her. It was just a thing I wanted to do for her. Not a normal thing I do at all. But she's been stressed, so I was going for the hot girl washing cars thing, in part to be cute and silly, and was in swimwear. She was calling to me from the upstairs window, whistling and stuff. I laughed. My other neighbors laughed. Mr. Miles came out with a mug of whatever the fuck evil drinks. Blood of the innocent? Puppy broth? Who knows? Maybe just shitty coffee, and was glaring at us, scoffing when she would come out on our porch with her tea to enjoy the show. Let me be clear, we were not being lewd or anything. She was saying shit like, "What are your rates? My car has never been so beautiful." I'll pay you double. It's cheesy shit couples around here say all the time. Maybe the worst thing she said that maybe was less for public consumption was admittedly my favorite thing. Hey good looking, what am I cooking? I will make it hot for you, implying she will make dinner. I don't know if I ever mentioned it, but Dinah is the best cook but generally doesn't take that on regularly, so her offering was heaven for me. Mr. Miles would ahem loudly, shake his head, do that indignant laugh older folks do. Everything, so we knew he disapproved and was in the audience. So we ignored him. And I definitely didn't defiantly stay out longer, flirting with my woman to piss him off. Solely. Anyway, Mr. Miles was too much of a coward, so sent Paul again. I was done with the car and Dinah made me a cool cocktail. Where we live, outdoor shit in the summer is done nice and early before the sun gets too high, so it was hotter than Satan's ass out. And we sat near the fan enjoying just chatting. Mr. Miles had long gone inside anyway, and this is our home. Fuck him. We're going to enjoy it. Paul waved as he walked towards us and Dinah said her favorite curses under her breath. He made some small talk with us, but Dinah was frosty with him, so I did most of the answers, but even I was short. But this is the South, so politeness is a bitch. Hard to explain. He said he was concerned about our cameras because it looks like they cover the yards of others and there are kids here, and you know what that can look like. I will blame the cocktail, but I was feeling like fucking with him, so I acting dumb. What will it look like? And he was all, you know what I mean, and I was like, now what do you mean, Mr. Paul? And that went on for a bit and he just stared at me and did a condescending chuckle and shook his head. Well, we'll see about what everyone thinks, just trying to be helpful given. And he gestures at nothing in particular. I smile as sweet as pie and thank him for coming by, but the cameras don't seem to bother anyone, but I will ask around. He told me to do that and walked off. We had been putting it off, but this spurred Dinah to look into Mr. H.O. He's legit. An officer of the HOA on the street, the other end of Mr. Miles's/Suga's house. But Suga has been in the hospital for surgery, and won't be back for at least a few days. She has a daughter I keep tabs with who has been in town to help care for her. When I talked to my own mother, she sounded annoyed about the situation as a whole, and asked if I would mind if she herself had a discussion with Miles. She grew up with him, so I said that was up to her. She said great. In that way that I knew she would be calling him. This morning Daniel, the other son, caught me as I brought out the trash cans. I was surprised because he doesn't live there, so I don't often see him. Small talk blah blah blah, and then he gets close and says that he's sorry about the whole thing with his dad, but I should be warned that he got into quite mood after talking with my parents, I assume Mom, and to tread lightly. I thanked him and went back in to tell Dinah. Dinah was in the nook, like a half-room bay window situation where Pop used to smoke, and she had gift stuff out like gift bags and ribbon. I was trying to figure if I had forgotten a birthday or something, and she just giggled and told me to come here. Rainbow flags. A lot of mini ones. Stuffed in a bright gift bag. I just looked at her like baby new. And she just shrugged, saying she was the newbie here and wanted to be a good neighbor. To her credit, there are more than one gift bags and she is dropping them off as I write to every house on the street, but I know my GF. This is an FU2 to Miles. She said to ask my internet friends, you in a Facebook group I've been sharing this with, for ideas of how to spruce up the place, now that we know there are no HO restrictions while she's out. So this is an update and also a plea. For the love of God, please don't give her too many crazy ideas. Give us some fun ones. I am all for painting rocks and patios and shit, but I still gotta live here, you know? Anyways, have a good long weekend if you're in the States. I still have a barbecue to plan. Edit. I just spoke to my mother video chat. Mom and Dinah have now synced energies. Help. Me. Mom said she talked to Daddy and they are wanting to pay for at least $2,000 to spruce up the place. Dinah is over the moon, has taken the device and is still talking with Mom now. 6 days later. Well, the Mr. Miles saga continues, so to pick up from my last post, the barbecue happened. It was fun. Had my parents and chosen family over. Open invite to my community, so some neighbors too. And Dinah's twin even came, and by twin I mean they're not actually twins, image that much hotness doubled. Laud. But siblings born on the same day a few years apart. For this I will call him David M30S. I never remember. David is also as gay as the day is long and has heard of all the shit Mr. Miles has been putting on. Actually, every single person at the barbecue knew. It was a topic I couldn't escape. Dinah was serving vodka mixed drinks, and you can image what 3 queerdos can come up with after a few drinks. David loudly announced painting party, as Dinah went and found every bit of paint we own. Before I could even work through my vodka-induced brain fog, people were painting everything. The porch, my chairs, damn near every rock around my trees, and all the raised garden beds. Now my backyard looks like a gay unicorn had projectile diarrhea and shat rainbows. I like it. We played Lily Allen Fuck You and other gay-ass songs, sang along. There are rainbow flags inside and outside my home at every window. In the garden between my pumpkins, they painted half my pumpkins. This is not a euphemism. Both cars have those mini flags that stay when you close the window. It was insanity. And the police arrived. They got a call about a disturbance from a neighbor, and we all knew damn well which. My whole street of neighbors were literally right there except him. A quick aside here, but it's not illegal to play loud music during Charday here. Just after like 8 or 9 or something. So no laws were being broken. The cops even admitted that. But they suggested we just keep it down. We thanked them and didn't. It was a fun evening. My mom waited until everyone else left and she and Daddy were drinking my best wine. Just loving this chaos, singing Dinah's praises, gushing over how she's designed the interior of this old house. She did really well, I have to admit. It's updated in here and just brighter and fresher. There was a knock on the door and Mom got it. Mr. Miles stepped in with Paul and Daniel in tow. My southern politeness brain shit the bed, so I audibly groaned at the sight of him. Dinah came back from the kitchen, saw him, crossed through the whole ass room and planted a kiss right on my lips as she handed me a fresh drink and sat right on my lap like a housewife. Mr. Miles asked for a drink. Dinah told him everything is out and in the kitchen, basically to say, fuck you, get your own in nice. His sons went to make him a drink and I politely asked what he needed. He said he wanted to have a take with me alone. Mom said, and what do you need with my daughter, Miles? And he said that that was between him and me. I said I was drunk and tired, so it will have to wait until morning. He had his drink, made some passive-aggressive comments, wished us a good evening, and said he will come by later. Mom walked him out. He did. The very next day. And sure enough, I was alone. Suga isn't doing well. She's not responding to treatment. They're planning for the worst. I was devastated to hear this. She's like our neighborhood mom. I've known her all my life, she's practically family. So I started to cry. He was being so nice to me, handing me a napkin, speaking to me softly, rubbing my back and telling me to let it all out. So I did. And then right when I was able to catch my breath and calm down, he said he wanted to tell me in person. I told him that was appreciated and I was so sorry for his family. He said, I know. Thanks. That's another reason I wanted us to chat like adults. I know that woman you live with doesn't like me much. And I laughed without meaning to. Not like him. She would piss on his grave and stomp the dirt down to the tune of, hit the road Jack should the chance arrive. And if she weren't fit for prison, she'd give herself that chance with her own bare hands. Mr. Miles is still being nice and says that he knows I am the reasonable one. And that we had our fun, but this tantrum of ours needs to end. Suga will be coming home to live out her time, and he doesn't want her to see our mess of a yard. He said it would upset her and he knows I don't want to ever upset her. I will be honest, I was so in my feelings over the news that he almost sounded reasonable to me. Then he offered to have Paul come over and help me, make my home presentable again, and my brain kicked back in. I stared at this man, who just used the worst possible news a child could share about a parent as a tactic, and the spirit of Dinah came upon me. I very coldly told him to leave, as I have decorating to do. I think he thought I meant to tear everything down because he left without a fuss. I told Dinah the moment she got home. At this point her patience was up. She stormed out of the house and for a moment I was like, oh God honey, don't do it, I don't even know where the jail is. And she came back in with bags. She had been shopping apparently, and this part is entirely Willa's fault. She found so many items, including colorful wind chimes. She just held up a few things and asked me to help her unload the rest, and I was like, rest? So we spent the whole night decorating the front porch. I will fucking marry this crazy ass woman, lol. This past Wednesday Suga got home. I rushed out to hug her and she hugged me back. It was one of those mama hugs that make you want to laugh and cry, and let everything out. She held my hand tight and looked at our porch. Then she laughed and said, damn girl, you really leaned in, huh? Then said something was missing. I asked her what and she said my flag. The big one I had in the front. I told her what Miles did to it and a storm went over her whole face. She got quiet and asked me to explain. I said she should rest and it's a long story. She turned to tell her daughter, who drove her, to make some lemonade and that she was going to sit with me on my porch a while. So I told her everything basically in all my posts, including Miles' recent visit. She kept her expression steely the whole time. She asked a lot of questions, then asked me if she ever told me about her first love. I thought she meant Mr. Richard, Miles' late father, and she laughed. She told me a story about how when she was young, before Richard ever asked her out, there was a woman her age who always dressed in suits, which for the time was not considered okay or normal. People hated her, but Suga fell for her almost instantly. She said Dinah reminds her of her, and that I seem really happy now that Dinah has moved in. Then she looked at me so serious and said, "So are you?" And I went inside to show her the ring I had long bought, and that I am going to marry that woman if she'll have me. She smiled and patted my cheek, kissed my hand and went home. Yesterday my daddy called and said, "Hey, what's this about a wedding?" And I was like, "What?" And he said that he's not supposed to be telling me this, so don't tell Mom, but she and Suga had a long phone call and Suga wanted to pay for my wedding. Not some of it. The whole damn thing. This is already long. Sorry, I swear I am skipping a lot here, but I was obviously floored. There's paperwork involved and Mom is working with Suga on it, and Daddy said, "Well, I guess you gotta ask that woman to marry you." And I said I intended to. So I am writing this antsy as fuck, ring in pocket, dressed up, waiting for Dinah to come home from the salon so we can have date night. Mr. Miles is about to have a complete conniption. Wish me luck.